welcome to this week's edition of the Old Poetry Podcast. And I'm proudly joined today with actor Cliff Parisi. How you doing, Cliff? All right?
My full title is actor and semi-professional Morris dancer. Thank you very much. Cheers, Chris. Yeah, I'm good, mate. Yeah, I'm good. I'm on standby to go into work today, and football's on today. England are playing, but it looks like I'm going to be working tonight, so I might miss that. But yeah, apart from that, I'm all good.
Oh, happy days. Well, thank you. Look, I appreciate you taking the time. I know one of you, a kind of mutual friend, has wrote you into this, so I just appreciate you taking the time to come on, pal.
Listen, it's my absolute pleasure to come on. I do a bit for the forces whenever I can. Ex-forces, combat stress is one that I've supported for quite a long time. So my mate Stu, who you're talking about, Stuart Cardy, who's ex-para, we went to school together. So that's how I know Stu. So I've known him longer than anybody, really. He's one of my oldest pals. And so he asked me to do it. And I said it would be great to do it. I don't do many podcasts, to be honest with you, because I talk a load of nonsense and people don't really want me on often. But here I am.
Well, through Facebook, I've set up a group that's following the Old Power Podcast, and he got invited through a friend, I think. And then I was actually spoke to him on the phone yesterday. Seems like an absolutely top bloke, and he looks like he's putting me in touch with quite a few people down the line. So obviously you being one of them. So
if you want Diana Ross's phone number, Stuart Cardy's got it. He's got everybody. So he'll put you in touch with everybody. It's like an agent.
He does sound like he knows everyone, to be fair. He's like, what about this guy? And what about this guy? And I'm like, God, send them my way. I've just got to fit them all in with coincide with my full-time employment. That's the only problem. But
you've got to get Lewis on. Lewis the impressionist. He'd be brilliant on this.
He has mentioned him. He said he's actually speaking to him today, hopefully. So
he's amazing. He's amazing. He'll be very entertaining, unlike me. Anyway, what do you want to talk about?
Well, like I say, with all the podcasts, I like to just get a bit of a background about the guest and kind of where you grew up, what you were like as a kid at school, and kind of literally what led you down the path you've taken along the way, and what you're up to now and that sort of thing. So over to you. Where did you grow up and what were you like at school?
Okay, Chris. Well, I started off lived in a place called Hungry Hill, Hornsey Rise, which when I was a kid was Hungry Hill. It was a bit. It was there was a lot of unemployment around there, and there was a lot of skullduggery going on. And the hill next to it was called Kill a Man for His Gyro, which sadly had connotations that were true. Anyway, so I went to Ashmount School, which was a lovely school, actually, in Hornsey Lane, up by Suicide Bridge. It all sounds very bleak, but actually it's quite a lovely area. And when I first discovered I could act, I was 7 years old, and I used to have to go to school in shorts, like we all did in those days. It was a weird kind of outfit: shorts, sandals, and grey socks. And we had these great big huge conker trees. They must have been about 300 years old. So the conker leaves would fall and they would be up to my waist. And then they would get covered in frost. And then I'd get dragged into school through things, which would be like, by the time I'd get to school, I'd be freezing cold. And it sounds like going into P Company or something like that. But it obviously wasn't that bad. But you do get fed up with it when you're little. And I used to have to come home for lunch and then go back again and then come back home again. See, so I got peed off with this after a while because my sister never used to have to do this. She stayed at school and had lunch. But anyway, one day I come home and I pretended I didn't want to go back. I'd had enough. And I said I was ill and I overacted as usual. And my mum went out down to the corner and phoned an ambulance from the phone box. The next thing is there's an ambulance, one of them sort of carry-on ambulances was outside with these, they used to be like chauffeurs in those days, grey uniforms with like chauffeurs' hats on, come pick me up in a stretcher and took me off down the hospital, finger up the bum, and next thing the appendix were taken out. So there was bugger all wrong with me. So that was my first that's an attempt at acting. So I've kind of figured that I was probably quite good at it. And then I used to watch television and think, I used to look at people and go, I don't believe what you're saying. Even when I was little, I used to go, I don't believe you. You don't believe it either. You're acting. And I used to go and say their lines in the mirror and mean them. So I had this belief about acting that it wasn't acting. And I'd kind of carried that through. And then I got a part in a film, I told it in part school where I met Stuart. Stuart was in the same class as me. They made a TV series there, and Stuart was in the opening sequence of this. Stuart Cardy dived off this great big high tower into a cargo net. He was always a bit of a nutter. He was destined for the paratroop regiment. And anyway, so I got the lead part in that film. And I was 14, and my dad said to me, 99.9% of actors are out of work. You know that, don't you, Cliff? And I thought, well, that sounds like an ideal career for me because I'm a bit of a lazy sod. So I did. Later in life, I pursued it again at the age of 20. But unfortunately, because I was dyslexic at school, so I kept dropping streams, and I ended up in the bottom in the end. Um, and Yeah, I kind of lost. I didn't have a lot of faith in myself. I thought I was stupid because dyslexia didn't exist in those days, and there was no excuse for being stupid, and I was stupid. So I left school not being able to read and write, and I bunked off from the age of 13 because I wasn't learning anything, and I was quite good at playing the guitar and not a bad musician. So I used to bunk off and get on the 14 bus and go down to Shaftesbury Avenue and Tin Pan Alley and hang around in the guitar shops there, and you'd see Slade and Wizard come in, and Rod Stewart and the Faces, and all these bands would come in and just buy all these fantastic guitars, and sometimes they would jam in the shop, and I'd be sitting there, this little kid who's bunked off school in a corner, and that's what I used to do is get buy myself a Mars bar, get on the bus, go down on the 14, spend all day down there, and then come back home again after school. And I don't know where that takes me to now. But anyway, I couldn't. I could basically that left me in a situation where I couldn't get into drama school when I left school because you need 5 GCSEs or CSEs or whatever they were called. I didn't have anything, and I was struggling with my reading. I was finding that tricky. So being an actor wasn't looking like a prospect for me, but I pursued it. And I was quite good at making money, funnily enough, when I was actually old enough to go out and earn a few quid. So I did quite well. I had a new Cortina and a Harley Davidson at the age of sort of 17. I had market stalls and things like that. I learned to spray cars, so I could make a few quid. I was all right at making a few quid, but once I actually decided to act, I became quite skint. And this is sounding like a bloody book. So I was skint. I had 2p in my pocket. I sold my car, sold my bike, and I walked around with a bag with my scripts in, everything that I'd actually worked on. And so I did amateur stuff, and I did evening classes. I auditioned for drama schools, but I was struggling to get in. A lot of them turned me away because I didn't have the academic requirements. So, yeah, and then I found myself in trouble. I got myself in trouble with listen, I lived in an area. I was no angel. I'm not going to pretend I was. I was a little fucker sometimes when I was a kid, but I wasn't a bad kid. Do you know what I mean by that? I wasn't. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I didn't hurt people. I weren't a nasty kid, but I ended up getting involved with some friends of mine that were great guys, but they were a little bit more serious than me, and I ended up getting well, let's just say I worked in banking for a while.
Right. Okay.
And
I get you.
So I got caught, and then I went to jail for a bit. And when I came out, it was quite good for me in a way because I learned to read and write in jail. I really studied hard, and I took Shakespeare in with me, and Pinter, and Noel Coward, and loads of books. And I studied really hard, and made me more determined that when I came out, I was gonna pursue it. And then when I came out of jail, I met up with a pal of mine who was a great actor called Andy Linden. You might have seen him. He's in Harry Potter, and he's been in loads of movies and stuff. And we did a double act together, and the double act was really successful. It was kind of controversial. You might find this controversial, but we performed as a couple of Argentinian concert party comedians who came back on the wrong boat after the Falklands War, and they were trying to get back home, and they hated the English. So it was a comedy double act, and we did it on the alternative circuit. But we sometimes places would get smashed up, and we'd clear places, and sometimes they'd shut down after we'd played them. So it was a bit of an iffy. We did the Edinburgh Festival, and we had a sort of comical Argentine flag hanging up there, and it was called Malvina's Cabaret. And we claimed Arthur's Seat, the mountain in Edinburgh, as Argentine territory. We planted an Argentine flag on it. Did all kinds of stupid stunts, and we used to have like people like Harry Enfield Palmer and Julian Clary, all that kind of that generation of comedians would appear as guests on our show. Predominantly the show was about taking the piss out of jingoism, and taking the piss out of everything that's English, like cricket, football hooligans, claiming that we're better at everything, really. The army came down, the colonel came down, he said, who put that Argentine flag on? This is quite close after the Falklands, so it's still a bit raw. This is quite sort of people, there's people who died there, including my mates, so it was a dodgy thing to do. But the colonel came down and he brought his whole brigade down one night. So it was about 300 of them, and they booked the whole theatre. We were shitting ourselves. We thought they were going to kill us. But they roared with laughter all night. They loved it, and they came back again time after time, and they really, really enjoyed it. So it was, we got the approval of the military anyway. And we did that. And then, weirdly, we got picked up by Oxford University, who were doing a graduation show, like the Cambridge Footlights. And we got picked up by them, and then we did a play with them, and then we did our own shows. And those guys go into television because they're generally quite clever, and they've got quite a few contacts in TV. So they went into television, and they took us with them. So we then became television actors, and then that's where it all kind of started to become a little bit more serious and more professional. And I've been kind of working in television ever since then. So I've been pretty much working as an actor now for 40 odd years. And I love it. It's great. I'm very lucky. And I count myself very lucky, because considering where I come from, I've done all right.
Yeah, it is. It sounds like you kind of stumbled into it a little bit, but I think everyone does in their professions. And just skipping back a little bit there, like the dyslexia thing, and I've got close family members that are dyslexic. I didn't get it, but I've got ADHD. I'll be quite open about that in the past.
Yeah.
And school isn't necessarily geared at everyone, is it? And I touch on this a lot because it's a big bugbear of mine. It's like people learn in different ways. Now, obviously, you yourself are not academic. I'm not academic. I've got 0 qualifications from school, but you've got talents in other ways, and they're not nurtured in the current schooling system. Even nowadays, I know you go back then, it was perhaps even worse, but they're not nurtured. And if they were found a way of nurturing actual talents rather than kind of thinking, right, you're not very good at maths or English, so you're not going to go anywhere in life, it's a bit of a shitter, really, isn't it?
But they still pursue this ridiculous policy now, that you have to have a maths and English qualification. Whereas, if they left people alone and let them join and become plumbers or electricians, there's calculators. Come on, we've got AI. What's all that for? At the end of the day, you can talk and Google will write a letter for you. It's just, what it does is it just keeps people in a box that's really frustrating, and it stops them achieving the things that they need to achieve, and they're totally capable of achieving in life. So I think you're right. I think we need to start to address how we teach, and what we teach, and to encourage kids that are dyslexic, because they've generally got other brilliant qualities that are not even considered in the education system that could be exploited. And I've got a bit of ADHD as well, although I've not been diagnosed. I did do one of those tests recently. I got sort of 98%.
I've done
So, yeah.
several of them, pal. I did several of them, and they all come out pretty much the same. So
Yeah.
it's short of going down an actual diagnosis route with the doctor. I don't think I need to be honest, because kind of
No.
my isms and the fidgeting, the talking, the going off at tangents. There are a lot of people that have got it, and like I've said quite recently, it's a great. I'm not a big fan of the whole label thing, but if a label helps you understand how your own brain works, then it can only be a good thing, you know.
Yeah, true. It's true. And they've discovered that, MI5 and spies and that, they're better off having dyslexic people doing those kind of jobs, designing things. And dyslexic people are really brilliant at patterns and seeing and working out patterns and predicting what's going to come next. So they're good at
Absolutely.
designing oil rigs and anti-terrorism and things like that. They're good at that kind of stuff. So where they have found niches for them, they're really brilliant, but they still require you to have a maths and English,
Yeah,
GCSE, which is really hard for us to do. And
I
unless
can't.
you've
I
got
can't quite.
dyslexia, you can't work out, you can't see why it's so difficult. I mean, I have to go for read-throughs, and sometimes they don't give me the script until I get there, and it's terrifying because the words dance around on the page. I can't keep up with everybody else. So I'm 4 or 5 pages ahead, marking out my lines, trying to learn them as it's like being chased down the motorway by a huge dyslexic lorry. Do you know, and it's going to run me over eventually. But I have other qualities that far outweigh my disability.
Absolutely. Like I say, it's about playing to people's strengths and weaknesses, and that works in a team environment. It works wherever people. You wouldn't pick your kind of physically kind of challenged person to lift something heavy, would you? You pick the big
No,
person that's stronger,
yeah,
and it's about that. It's about identifying people's strengths and weaknesses. And even at that level at school, if teachers were able to identify that perhaps you're not academic, but by God, you're really, really good at building this or looking at patterns and stuff like that. And maybe I could be wrong because I'm no expert, but maybe they are kind of exploring it a little bit more. And I really hope so as well, because again, I think people are missing out
yeah,
on their chosen careers and being kind of nurtured in the right direction.
yeah. I think they should have a dyslexic pass, and you should have a dyslexic class, and go, from the age of 10 to like from or 10 to 15, you can all be in a dyslexic class together and do dyslexic stuff that you're brilliant at. You never know what they're going to come up with. They could come up with, I mean, inventions, all kinds of stuff. They're clever people. We're geniuses at some stuff and just crap at other. And, there's nothing wrong with that. And we've got to start to educate people that actually just dyslexia is a superpower as well as a disadvantage. So, yeah. So I'm
No,
right
absolutely.
behind that. But it
No,
can be
absolutely,
really
absolutely.
bloody depressing, growing up with that as a kid. You feel like you don't fit. You don't fit because you don't fit in any class, and you're not stupid. You're not stupid, and so you kind of feel like very early on that there's a conspiracy against you. That the world has basically turned its back on you from a very, very young age, and you are never going to be successful. And that's how I felt, and I felt alone. I used to jump on that bus and I used to go down to the West End and just dream about playing the guitar, and I couldn't afford a guitar like that. And then, we did have a band, but we were so awful. Honestly, someone dropped dead in the front row when we played once. We were so terrible.
That bad.
Um, we didn't realise it was we didn't know what OAP meant. So we got a gig playing for the council, an OAP gig, and the curtain. They introduced us. And they were just about to open the curtain, and there was a thud, and someone dropped dead in the front row. Anyway,
That's before you even
story.
started then.
That's before I even started. So I dropped the musician stuff straight away and decided to become an actor.
So okay, we acting then. So obviously you did this sort of duo initially, and then kind of where did because again, and hopefully you won't kind of hold this against me, but obviously you can't deny you're kind of really well known. EastEnders is a national institution, isn't it? It's like renowned through Britain. It comes in hand with a cup of tea in the UK, and obviously people will probably most know you for being Minty and EastEnders.
That's right. Yeah.
So how did that come about?
Minty, it was weird, really, because I'm not sure whether they've ever done this before. But I came in as a small part. I mean, you've got to remember, I'd already done 20 years of acting, on TV before I'd appeared in EastEnders. But you can carry on as an actor and be really busy, and no one knows who you are. Really, they might be slightly familiarised, know your face, but they don't know who you are. But when you go into EastEnders, it's a totally different story. Overnight, everybody knows who you are. So that was weird. But I auditioned for a part called Rick Roach. And I got the part, and he was basically Janine's landlord. So Janine was on the floor, she was having a hard time, and I was her landlord, and I was giving her hell. Then they wrote this new part called Minty Peterson, and he was Phil's mate from prison or somewhere. I think they might have been mates in jail. Can't remember. And so I basically changed name overnight, changed character. So I became Minty Peterson. So if you look at the old episodes where I'm Rick Roach, one day I'm Rick Roach, and then you see the titles the next day, and it's Minty Peterson. So I changed characters overnight, jumped horses, and so
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So basically, it's a very similar character. So I kind of became Phil's enforcer. Then Steve McFadden left the show for about a year or 18 months and went off to do other stuff. And so I kind of held the fort alongside Billy Mitchell for the Mitchells and kind of looked after Sam. And then, then he came back. And then I went on to become this kind of double act partner with Ricky Groves, who plays Gary. So we used to find quite a lot of the stuff they wrote for us funny. When it was never really meant to be, so we would somehow make it turn it into a sitcom. It quite often, when you laughed at what we were doing, it wasn't meant to be laughed at all. I have this ability to find the humour in situations, and it kind of transpires on the TV sometimes, where I'll find a gag. And so we kind of became known as this kind of comedy double act in EastEnders, which then they realised that it was actually quite a good thing to have, because sometimes you needed a little getaway, because if you get a really heavy storyline, you might want to lighten it up a bit. So you cut to the garage and me and Gary are doing something stupid. So yeah, 9 years of that, which was great, and I loved it. I really, really loved it, and I'm really, really grateful for. But it can be a double-edged sword. You can come out of that and never work again. So I wasn't sure if I'd ever work again. And in actual fact, I don't think they wanted even to see me for Call the Midwife. I think my agent pushed and pushed and pushed, and eventually they saw me. So I was kind of lucky to get what's turned out to be a 14-season job on a show that's one of the most popular shows on telly. So I'm very, very lucky, and I count my blessings, believe me, because this ain't an easy industry to be in. It's cold out there. Even if you're a professional actor and you work, you know your stuff, it ain't easy.
Well, it is, isn't it? Because you kind of move from contract to contract, as it were. And I suppose you're not going to be told too much in advance if that character's going to be killed off. And then you're kind of in it, literally out of work, aren't you? Oh, you've gone.
There was an incoming call. You there?
Yeah, I'm back.
Sorry, I had a call coming in. They're going to call me in to go to work. I think they're trying to get hold of.
Do you need to take it or?
No, they've gone. I dropped the call.
Right.
So
Okay. So no, I was just kind of saying, like, you know, it is a bit of a, and I suppose I don't know how much you know in advance as your character, but how far in advance you know the script. But you might be killed off in an episode, and then you're literally out of work, aren't you? Kind of.
yeah, yeah. And if you come out of a show like EastEnders, you could be out of work for life. I mean, you could be resigned to Panto land for the rest of your life. Not a bad thing. I love Panto. Yeah, I mean, television is a funny animal, and if your face don't fit, then I don't know. I mean, it's hard, but I've been very, 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 very lucky. I've never been out of work really for more than a week or two. I've always worked, so I've been really, really lucky. But there's not many people can say that. Um, I don't do a lot of theatre, and mainly telly. But yeah, I mean, I'm very, very lucky. I'm very fortunate.
Yeah. No. How did you find the whole kind of EastEnders thing? And I suppose Call the Midwife as well. How were they kind of when you're working on set? Because again, for a member of public like myself, I have no kind of idea how the stuff works. And does
Yeah.
everyone get on set, or was this any kind of people that didn't, that you can name and say that there were people that really hated each other, but they had to play
Oh, there's a right
alongside each
bunch
other?
of
Do you know what I mean?
there's a real bunch of bastards out there. Do you want me to list them? I'm gonna take the phone into the other room because I'm just about to run out of charge. I'm gonna have to put it on the charger. Hang on. Oh, you know what? The thing is, I've got to be honest. That in have we frozen?
No, we're
In
good.
our business, like any business, and I suppose Sorry, I'm gonna have to look down at you now because this is one of those bloody chargers that you have to put the phone on because my charging port's not working. So it's gonna be get funny.
Right. Okay.
I'm
No
not.
worries.
I'm looking down at you for some reason. No, let's see if I can do that. That might be better. Right, here we go. So no, I mean the truth is that people that are a pain in the arse, they don't work. Most people are nice. Most people are great, and they're great fun to work with, and they're very, very professional. Um, and so the truth of the matter is that there aren't that many people that are. And I'm sorry because I know you're looking for a scoop,
I'm
but there
not. I'm
aren't that
not.
many.
I'm just intrigued. That's all. I'm just genuinely intrigued.
Like all kind of, you can get bosses that can be a bit dodgy, and you can get people that will take advantage of situations. The truth is that most people are really lovely. It's a nice industry to be in. Um, you know, you will get theatre companies that will rip people off, but that doesn't often happen. You will get actors that are a bit difficult and a bit precious, but that doesn't often happen these days. There's so much choice. If they wanted to get rid of me, there's 100 actors that could do what I do and the same age as me out there, so they could do it overnight. So it doesn't pay to be difficult. And I think most people know that.
Yeah, I suppose that's
I
it
know
in
that's
any
a really
walk of life,
boring
though,
answer,
isn't it?
eh?
No, it's not. It's
Yes,
not. It's true.
exactly.
It's not. It's not. It's in all walk of life. If you choose to be a bit of a pain in the arse, then people aren't going to want to work with you, and you get a bad reputation. That's the same in my industry, in the fire service.
Yeah.
That's the same in the military. People don't like you. If you're easy to get on with and you're genuinely a nice person, then people will work with you and do stuff for you and help you out when you need it as well, won't they? So.
Yeah. And if you've got shortcomings like I have in terms of learning lines and stuff, then you make up for it in other ways by being really inventive and you do your best. You always come on and you play your best game. I like it. What I say to young actors that come in, I say to them, listen, it's like a game of 2020 cricket, right? You're only going to get out there. You're going to be out there for a few minutes. Just hit that ball and run. Hit it as hard as you can and run. And then if you're going to be, it's not a test match. This is like get in there and and do your best, and don't ponder on it too much. And the other thing is that with acting is if you like some actors, they get so excited that they're coming in to do a scene and they've got a speech and they work and work and work and work and work on the speech, and they've worked every eyelash, they've worked every single flick of the eye, and what happens is it becomes unnatural. You've got to be careful not to make it too mechanical, not to overwork it. Know your lines and be adaptable. Think of 100 ways to do it. Go in there with a few options for the director. Be prepared. The director might ask you to do something completely different to what you've planned to do. Just be ready to be adaptable. Don't be too firm in what you've decided, your decisions, because your decisions may be wrong, or other people may have a different idea, and the actor you're playing against might completely play against what you're doing. So you've got to be professional, but you've got to be adaptable. You've got to be able to. It's a bit like, I suppose, anything else, like a football match. If they're playing that way, then you've got to adapt to that. But yeah, I mean, it's a great. Every challenge, every day is a different challenge. Every piece of dialogue is worth learning and learning as many ways as you possibly can. And I have this theory that any line you can get a laugh on. Don't care what the line is, I can get a laugh on pretty much any piece of dialogue.
Yeah,
that's one of the things I look at first. It's like, how do I get a laugh out of this? And then I'll put it to bed, and I don't do it. But it's there. It's generally there.
Yeah, fair play. Well, you sound really passionate about it, and I suppose it comes back to, I've said this before as well on a couple of podcasts. If you find a career or a job that you really, really enjoy, it's not like work, is it? And I've been really, really fortunate over the years to do jobs that I've really, really enjoyed, and it doesn't feel like I actually go to work. And it sounds like you feel the same, which is worth its weight in gold, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the waiting around, and that it's what we say is like sitting in your trailer is what you get paid for. You do the work for nothing. The actual acting you do for nothing, because you love it. But there's a lot of sitting around, and like the fire brigade, I'm sure there's lots of sitting around. And then when you're actually doing the job that is worthwhile, and you're getting results, and that's where your payment is, isn't it? That's where you get your achievement is, and that's just kind of like, I'm not likening it to fire brigade, but it's that being able to switch on the adrenaline and get out that door and put it on stage. That's what you've got to be able to do, and you've got to be able to conserve your batteries, be able to be calm, and wait until that moment arrives, and then go out and explode on stage or explode in front of the camera.
Oh, absolutely, pal. Absolutely. Just want to touch on a couple more things, because I know I don't want you to miss that call and get sacked and be my fault. So what I was going to say is that obviously you were in I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. I just want to touch on how you find that experience in the jungle again, because I spoke openly about working in the jungle in my military time. The jungles are harsh, albeit I'm sure it's very, very different, but the jungle is a harsh place. I just want to see how you kind of found that, and if you enjoyed it or not.
Well, it was a weird experience, and there's no clock, so you can't really see much sky because there's overhead canopy, and you can tell the time of day roughly by what noises are being made in the jungle. What animals are making a noise, what critters, what beetles are running around, and so you can kind of. I discovered I didn't sleep much at night. I got whiplash on the way to the airport. And so I was having some quite powerful drugs. So I was off my tits most of the time in the jungle. And I became a bit of one. I almost became a member of the audience because I was a bit stoned out of my head, a bit knackered. I wasn't eating anything. I thought, well, you know what? I could kill two birds with one stone. I could do with losing a few pounds, and I ain't feeding me properly in here. Why not just not eat? Right? Because I'm only going to get possum's ass anyway, so just don't eat. Let them give it to James Haskell. So I used to give James Haskell all my food, and so I was out of it. And just watching Ian Wright and James Haskell and you know some of the other characters in there. I was like a member of the audience. So I became really boring. And the truth of the matter is, he's quite boring. You're sat around for 24 hours a day doing nothing most days. You're just sat there doing bugger all. And they might have a little game for you to play, but then you're back in um, so yeah, you kind of try and pass the time of day with routine, washing up or cleaning the camp or something. But the jungle is alive. You look at the floor and you realise when you look at the floor, it's actually moving. You know, it's like a carpet that's moving all the time. There's stuff running around everywhere, and everything's having a little nibble at you. But as far as being scared of anything, I thought I would be, but I wasn't. I didn't like the being buried alive thing with rats. But to be honest with you, I knew that, 10 feet away, there was someone with a shovel that could get me out if I really started to struggle with it. So I just relaxed. So, yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a really interesting thing to do. I don't think I achieved very well at it. I don't think I did very well at it, but my excuse is that I had a dodgy neck and I was off my tits on painkillers. But it was a nice experience. I don't know whether I'd do it again, but I wouldn't say to people, don't do it. I would definitely, if you get offered it, do it. It's fun. But don't scream. That's what they want you to do. Don't be scared. That's exactly what they want you to do. And don't tell them what you're scared of because they'll give it to you.
Yeah, I can imagine. And like I say, I suppose it's just part of the experience, isn't it? If you get that opportunity to go out there and get paid to go in the jungle and be on a show and do what they do, why would you not take that? It's kind of a no-brainer, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And you should always say yes to experiences you've never had a chance to do before. Always, especially if somebody else is paying for it. Yeah, have it. Do it.
Yeah, happy days, Phil. Happy days. Well, it sounds like you enjoyed that as well. So fair play to you. I just want to touch on what you're up to right now. What are you filming? If you can talk about that, and what
Yeah.
are your upcoming things, if that's okay.
Well, we've just shot Christmas episode on Call the Midwife, and I've also just shot a Christmas episode of The Good Ship Murder. In both of them, I'm playing Santa. I play Santa on Christmas Day for the last 22 years, I think. I did it in EastEnders every year, and I've done it in Call the Midwife every year too. So I am Santa again on Christmas Day on some BBC show called The Midwife, and I'm also on Channel 5 on The Good Ship Murder. So we've been doing that. I've made a moisturiser for men, and so it's called Manly and Mush, and that's coming out, and that's available now online. You can buy it, and it will hopefully be in the shops around Christmas time. It's a stainless steel can that you can refill, and it's most moisturisers. Men are using moisturisers now, believe it or not. A lot of us are, and I've used them all my life because I've been working in the acting industry, and they do use makeup and stuff. So what I've discovered is that women's moisturisers are sticky and shiny, and men and generally that's what they put in men's moisturisers. So we get women's moisturisers just repackaged generally. So my moisturiser's dry and not shiny, and it's really good. So that's what I've been doing mainly on moisturisers. So get out there and buy that.
Get out and buy it. Well, I'll look out for that, and I'll have to give that a try myself. Unless you know where I am, if you want to send me, a free
I'll send you a
trial,
sample.
and I'll quite happily do a review on that. No problem. I like getting freebies. I like freebies. Freebies are great.
Yeah.
No, happy days, pal. Happy days. It's been a pleasure. I don't want to keep you too much longer because I know you've got a call. I don't want to be the reason that after 14 seasons of Call the Midwife, you're out of work and just playing Santa in Panto.
I know. I'm getting boring now. I'll bugger off. So my wife says, you're getting boring.
No, it's been a pleasure. Well, what I'll do, mate, is I'll have a chat with you off air in a second, but I'll stop recording. This episode will be out in a couple of weeks' time. I'll get it out there and I'll send it to you when the link goes live and that, pal. But no, look, it's always a pleasure talking to to the likes of yourself, and it's been brilliant, mate. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Cheers, mate. See you later, Chris. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this and similar podcasts, please go to the Old Paratrooper Podcast YouTube channel and subscribe. And why not give the Instagram page a follow while you're at it?